Today, we're going to dive into a pretty unique way of looking at relationships. It's called the Divine Feminine Key to Kingdom Marriage. It's this idea that reframes partnership as, well, something much, much bigger than just our own happiness. So let's get right into what that actually means. So let's just start with this question, because it really gets to the very heart of this whole concept. What if the goal of your relationship wasn't just about being happy and fulfilled? What if it was about taking on a shared, profound mission together? To really get a grip on this framework, we're going to use a little metaphor, a lock and a key. We'll start with the lock. That's the ultimate goal, the destination. And in this case, that destination is what's known as a kingdom marriage. So what in the world is a kingdom marriage? Well, you can think of it as a union where two people make a conscious choice to place their relationship under God's authority. Their shared purpose isn't just their own happiness, but to actively work on a spiritual mission together, right here on Earth. This slide, wow, it really highlights two huge shifts in thinking. First, the focus completely moves from pleasure to purpose. The marriage itself is seen as a mission. And second, it's built on what's called a covenant, not just a contract. A covenant is seen as this sacred, unbreakable bond, which is a totally different kind of foundation. Okay, so if the kingdom marriage is the lock, then what's the key? Well, this framework suggests that the key is this concept of the divine feminine, a very specific spiritual energy that's said to unlock the absolute full potential of the union. So what is this key, really? It's described as a woman's unique spiritual essence. In this way of thinking, it's a receptive, nurturing kind of energy that's designed to perfectly complement and balance the more active, protective, masculine energy in the relationship. Now, this divine feminine energy is broken down into four main attributes, which you can see right here. We're going to walk through what each of these means in the real world: the power of influence, radiance and softness, spiritual gatekeeping, and last but not least, receiving with grace. First up, the power of influence. And look, the distinction here is absolutely critical. This is not about control or force, not at all. It's framed as the ability to guide, to shape the home's atmosphere and gently lead a partner using grace and wisdom. And this chart just leads it out so clearly, doesn't it? On one side, you've got control, which is all about force, making demands being rigid. But influence, in this context, is about grace, discernment, and flexibility. It's a really subtle but incredibly powerful shift in how you approach things. You know, to make this idea a bit more concrete, the source material often points to biblical figures like Queen Esther or Abigail. They're seen as these prime examples of women who used strategic wisdom and timing, not brute force, to bring about massive positive changes. Okay, the second attribute is radiance and softness. Now, it's so important to understand how this is being framed. Softness here is not presented as weakness. It's literally defined as strength under control. The whole idea is that this energy creates a safe, welcoming harbor for a partner. Third, we've got something called spiritual gatekeeping. This attribute really positions the woman in a role of spiritual protection for her family. Her prayer life is seen as a key that provides a kind of spiritual covering. And this leads right into that fourth attribute we saw, receiving with grace. This isn't about being passive, it's about having the strength to be open to receiving love, help, and provision. The idea is that it fosters this cycle of generosity that keeps the partnership in balance. So that's all the theory. But how does this key actually work in the real world? Let's take a look at how these principles are supposed to be applied in the day-to-day of a relationship. One of the biggest ways this plays out is by reclaiming a word that, let's be honest, has a lot of baggage for some people: the word helper. And this is where it gets really interesting. The whole point comes from the original Hebrew. The word used is ezer, and it doesn't just mean assistant. In fact, ezer is used elsewhere in Scripture to describe a strong, necessary ally. And get this, the most powerful example? God is sometimes described as an ezer to humanity. This slide just puts it side by side, and the difference is like night and day, right? The traditional view might see the role as a subordinate, an assistant, but this reclaimed view completely redefines it as a strong ally, a necessary and vital partner in that shared mission we talked about. And this way of thinking leads to a couple of other really practical ideas. The first is about cultivating inner beauty, which really just means prioritizing your own spiritual and personal growth. The second is about creating flow,
shifting away from that hustle culture mindset and instead leaning into intuition and deep emotional connection, which are seen as core strengths here.
So, when you bring this all together, it's pretty clear this is a very different way of looking at marriage. Let's kind of land the plane here with a final summary that pulls all these unique ideas together in one place. This table does a great job of summing it all up. On the kingdom marriage side of things, you've got this focus on submission to God and sacrificial service. And the divine feminine key perfectly complements that with a focus on trusting what's called the divine flow, your intuition, and on balancing the intermarriage of energies. That just means making sure both the masculine and feminine energies within the relationship are honored and working together in harmony. And that really leaves us with this final, powerful question to think about. I mean, no matter what your personal beliefs are, it's a fascinating question to consider. How might viewing your own relationship as a divine assignment totally change the way you and your partner interact, support each other, and face all the challenges life throws your way?